Hello, my dear teachers. In our classrooms every day, we work hard, we plan, we teach, we assess, and we truly care about our students. But here's the real question. Are we always teaching in the most effective way? Sometimes, without realizing it, we fall into practices that seem correct, but actually limit student learning. This video is not about blame. It's about awareness, reflection, and improvement. In this training, we're going to explore the most common incorrect classroom practices. The ones we see every day, and more importantly, understand why they don't work. Then, step by step, we'll look at what effective teaching should look like instead. Because small changes in our teaching can create a big impact on student learning. Let's start our journey of improving classroom practice, together. Now, we will focus on reading classes. Reading is not just about asking students to read a text. It is a complete process that requires clear steps, strategies, and purpose. However, in many classrooms, some common practices are happening that reduce the effectiveness of reading lessons. These practices may seem simple, and sometimes even unnoticeable. But they have a strong impact on students' understanding, engagement, and skill development. In this section, we will highlight the most common incorrect practices in teaching reading. Let's take a closer look. Backhand index pointing down. Many teachers don't activate prior knowledge properly in reading classes. Sometimes, they skip this step completely. Or they ask students about something general, or unrelated to the lesson. As a result, students start reading without any connection to the topic. And this makes understanding more difficult. In other cases, activation happens, but it is not purposeful. It does not support the reading objective of the lesson. The correct practice is to activate relevant prior knowledge, directly connected to the topic of the reading text. For example, before reading, the teacher can show a picture, ask focused questions about the topic, and guide students to recall what they already know. This helps students enter the text with clear thinking and prepares them to understand the content more effectively. Another incorrect practice in reading classes. Many teachers don't set a purpose before reading tasks. Students are simply asked to read, without a clear reason, without a task, and without a guiding question. As a result, students read passively. They don't know what to focus on, and they are not fully engaged. This reduces the effectiveness of the lesson, because no specific reading skill is being developed. Reading without purpose means learning without direction. The correct practice is to always set a clear purpose before reading. Before students start reading any section, the teacher should give a focused question or a specific task. For example, a scanning question, where students read to find specific information from the text. Also, the teacher should break the text into small sections and assign a purpose for each part. This helps students read with focus, develop a specific reading skill, and stay actively engaged throughout the lesson. Reading should always have a purpose, not just a process. Audio support is an important and effective tool that helps increase student engagement and supports reading skill development. When students listen to the audio while reading the text at the same time, they become more focused and more involved in the lesson. This strategy helps students follow the correct pronunciation, understand the rhythm of the language, and connect spoken words with written text. As a result, students' reading comprehension improves, because they are not only seeing the words, but also hearing them. Audio support is especially helpful for students who struggle with reading, as it guides them and builds their confidence. The correct practice is to provide clear audio support during reading, so students can listen and read simultaneously. This creates a more engaging learning experience and supports the development of strong reading skills. Another common incorrect practice in reading classes. Many teachers design the whole reading lesson around one single task, or focus on developing only one reading comprehension skill. For example, the entire lesson may focus only on scanning, while ignoring other important skills. However, reading comprehension includes many different skills, such as skimming, scanning, inference, vocabulary and context, and identifying the central idea. Focusing on only one skill limits students' development and does not give them a complete understanding of the text. The correct practice is to target a variety of reading skills within the lesson. The teacher should design different tasks, each one focusing on a specific reading skill. For example, one task for scanning, another for skimming, another for inference, and another for vocabulary and context. This approach helps students interact with the text in different ways, develop multiple reading skills, and achieve deeper understanding. Reading is not one skill. It is a combination of skills that work together. Another important point in reading classes is using text clues. Many teachers provide the answer directly or guide students step by step until they reach it, without actually training them how to find it. This limits students' independence and prevents them from developing real reading skills. One of the most important skills students need is using context clues from the text. Students should learn how to use these clues to answer higher-order questions like inference, and to understand vocabulary without looking it up. Let's look at this example. For the inference question, what can you infer about Ali's personality? Students should go back to the text and identify the clues. He did not stop. He kept writing for 2 hours. Finished the race with a smile. These clues show that Ali is determined. He does not give up, and he stays positive. For the vocabulary question, what does the word determination mean? Students should again use the clues in the text. The road was difficult. He became very tired. He did not stop. From these clues, they can understand that determination means continuing even when something is difficult. Also, in this type of question, the teacher should ask students to highlight the clues in the text. This step is very important because it trains students to locate evidence and prepares them to do this independently later. The goal is not just to get the correct answer, but to build the skill of using text clues. This is how we develop strong, independent readers who can think and find answers on their own. Guiding questions are important to help students who struggle to find the answer. However, many teachers do not use guiding questions effectively. Instead, they provide the answer directly or move to a higher achieving student to answer the question. As a result, struggling students are left behind, and they do not develop their thinking skills. The purpose of guiding questions is to support students step by step and help them reach the answer independently. The teacher should not give the answer, but should ask simple questions that lead students to think and find the answer on their own. Let's look at this example. The main question is, what can you infer about Sarah's attitude toward sports? Instead of giving the answer, the teacher can ask guiding questions like, what did Sarah do after school? Did she stop practicing when she felt tired? What happened after a few weeks? These questions help students go back to the text and focus on the important details. The teacher can also ask simple yes or no questions, like, did Sarah practice every day? Did she give up? Did she improve? Step by step, students begin to see the answer. They understand that Sarah is hardworking, determined, and does not give up. This is the correct practice. We don't give answers. We guide students to find them. This is how we support all learners and build independent thinkers. Equal participation is essential in every classroom activity. All students should participate at the same time, not just 1 or 2 students. However, many teachers rely on calling one student to answer a question, and sometimes they assign one student to read aloud to practice and enhance fluency. This is not a correct or effective practice. Because most students become passive and stop thinking or practicing. As a result, only one student benefits, while the rest of the class is not engaged. The correct practice is to engage all students in every activity. When asking a question, all students should think about the answer at the same time. For example, the teacher asks a question and gives students thinking time. So every student is mentally involved, not just one. Also, during reading practice, all students should read together and repeat after the teacher. This helps develop fluency for everyone, not just one student. As shown in this example, in the first situation, all students are thinking about the same question. Everyone is engaged, and everyone is participating. In the second situation, all students are reading together, repeating the same sentence after the teacher, which helps build fluency and confidence. This is the goal of effective teaching. Not selecting one student, but engaging all students at the same time. Following up questions are very important after reading. After students read the selection and answer the main question, the teacher should not stop there. However, many teachers ask only one question, then move directly to the next part of the lesson. As a result, some students may answer the question, but without fully understanding the whole text. This means that real comprehension is not achieved. The correct practice is to ask additional follow-up questions to check students' understanding of the entire selection. These questions help the teacher make sure that students understood the details, the events, and the main ideas. For example, after asking the main inference question, the teacher can ask, "What happened during the game? How did the player feel? Did he leave the game? What was his goal?" These questions guide students to go back to the text, review the information, and confirm their understanding. Following up questions are not just extra questions. They are essential to ensure real comprehension. This is how we make sure students don't just answer, but truly understand. Now, let's move to grammar classes. Many incorrect practices happen during grammar lessons, which affect students' understanding and ability to use the language. In this section, we will look at the most common incorrect practices in teaching grammar. Before going into details for each one, many teachers do not properly activate prior knowledge in grammar lessons. Sometimes, they revise something from previous lessons, but it is not related to today's target. Other times, they skip this stage completely and move directly to teaching the new grammar point. This is not an effective practice. Activation of prior knowledge is very important because it prepares students for today's lesson. Some skills are necessary before learning a new grammar point, and students need to master these skills first. That's why the teacher should check students' understanding before starting the lesson. This can be done by giving simple tasks to see if students are ready. For example, before teaching the simple present, the teacher should check if students can use verbs correctly in a sentence. Like in this activity, students choose the correct verb to complete each sentence. This helps the teacher know if students are ready to learn the new lesson or not. So, activation of prior knowledge is not just a warm-up. It is a key step to ensure successful learning. Inductive teaching is one of the most effective ways to teach grammar. Many teachers explain the rule directly and ask students to memorize it. But this approach limits students' engagement and reduces real understanding. When students only receive information, they may remember it for a short time, but they often cannot use it correctly. On the other hand, inductive teaching actively involves students in learning. Instead of giving the rule, the teacher presents examples, visuals, and a clear context. Then, the teacher asks guiding questions, using CCQs to help students think and discover the rule by themselves. When students are involved in thinking, answering questions, and analyzing examples. Their understanding becomes deeper, and their mastery of the skill becomes stronger. Using tools like visuals, timelines, and real-life examples also helps students understand the meaning clearly. For example, the teacher shows sentences like, "He played football yesterday. She visited her grandmother." Then asks, "When did these actions happen? Is it in the past or now? Is the action finished?" Step by step, students begin to notice the pattern and understand that this is the simple past. This process is called contextualization, where students understand the rule through context, not memorization. This is the correct practice. We don't just explain the rule. We guide students to discover it. And this is how students truly understand and master the target skill. Scaffolding tools are very important in teaching. They help the teacher deliver the lesson clearly and help students understand the learning outcome step by step. When a teacher teaches without scaffolding tools, the lesson may become too abstract, and students may not fully understand the target. But when the teacher uses scaffolding tools, learning becomes clearer, easier, and more meaningful. Scaffolding tools support students while they are learning, until they are able to understand and use the target independently. These tools also increase engagement, because students are not only listening, they are looking, thinking, answering, and connecting ideas. For example, in this lesson, the teacher is teaching the simple past. She uses visuals to show clear examples. She uses a timeline to help students understand that the action happened in the past. She uses CCQs to check meaning and guide thinking, such as, "When did he play soccer? Is it in the past? Is the action finished?" She also uses contextualization through examples and situations, so students understand the grammar point in context, not in isolation. All of these tools work together to make the lesson clearer, support understanding, and help students master the learning outcome. So, scaffolding tools are not extra parts of the lesson. They are essential tools for successful teaching and successful learning. The production stage is a very important part of any language lesson. However, many teachers skip this stage and focus only on controlled activities. They give tasks like multiple choice, fill in the gaps, matching, and similar exercises. These activities are useful, but they are only for checking understanding and confirming that students learned the form. They are not enough. Language is not only for choosing answers, it is for using. That's why we must end the lesson with a production activity. In this stage, students use the target language independently, in speaking or writing. For example, after teaching the simple past, the teacher can ask students to write a short story, or at least one sentence, using the target structure. This helps students move from understanding to real use. So, the production stage is not optional. It is essential. Because the goal of teaching grammar and vocabulary is not just to know the rule, but to use the language confidently. Now, let's move to vocabulary classes. There are some common mistakes in teaching vocabulary, which affect students' understanding and use of new words. In this section, we will focus on three main areas: effective strategy, drilling, and the production stage. Each one plays an important role in helping students learn and use vocabulary correctly. Let's look at them one by one. Many teachers miss the correct strategy when teaching vocabulary. They often teach all words in the same way, without thinking about which strategy is most suitable for each word. But this is not effective. Each vocabulary word needs a specific strategy, and using the right strategy helps students understand the word more clearly and deeply. Also, teachers need to use different strategies to develop different vocabulary skills. For example, The word elephant is a concrete word. It is best taught using flashcards. When students see a picture of an elephant, they can immediately understand the meaning. This makes learning simple and direct. Now, let's look at the word disagreement. This word is best taught using morphology. The teacher starts with the root word agree, which students already know. Then, the teacher explicitly teaches the meaning of the prefix dis, which means not, and the meaning of the suffix ment, which turns the word into a noun. After that, students can conclude the meaning of the word disagreement by themselves, as not agreeing. This helps students analyze words and build new vocabulary independently. Now, let's talk about context clues. Context clues are words or phrases in a sentence that help students understand the meaning of an unfamiliar word. In this example, Mr. Jones is such an affable person. He is so kind and friendly. The words kind and friendly help students understand the meaning of affable. This type of context clue is called a synonym clue, because the sentence gives words with similar meaning. Also, there are other types of context clues, such as antonyms, definitions, examples, and inference. These different types help students guess meanings in different ways depending on the sentence. So, the correct practice is to choose the right strategy for each word. Flashcards for clear, visual words. Morphology to break down word parts. And context clues to understand meaning in sentences. Many teachers do not give enough attention to drilling. Sometimes, they introduce a new word and move on quickly, without asking students to repeat or practice it. But this is not effective. Drilling is very important in vocabulary teaching, because it helps students master the correct pronunciation. And this is not only for young learners. Even high school students need drilling. When students repeat the word several times, they become more confident and more accurate. Also, drilling is not only about repetition. The teacher should guide students to focus on important vocabulary features, like the correct pronunciation, the stressed syllable, and the type of the word. Is it a noun, a verb, or an adjective? For example, the teacher says the word. Then all students repeat together several times. This helps them hear the correct model and practice it clearly. So, the correct practice is not to say the word once, but to ask students to drill the word multiple times, with focus and guidance. This helps students remember the word, pronounce it correctly, and use it with confidence. Many teachers do not implement the production stage in vocabulary lessons. Sometimes, they forget this stage completely and focus only on controlled activities. They give tasks like matching, multiple choice, or fill in the gaps. These activities are useful, but they are only for checking understanding. They are not enough to help students master vocabulary. Vocabulary is part of a language, and language is meant to be used. That's why the production stage is very important. In this stage, students should produce the learning target in speaking or writing. For example, after learning new words, students should be asked to write at least one full sentence using each word. This helps them move from recognition to real use. So, the correct practice is not to stop at controlled activities, but to always finish the lesson with a production task, where students use the new vocabulary independently. Because the goal is not only to know the word, but to use it correctly and confidently. Common mistakes in classroom management can strongly affect students' learning and engagement. Many teachers focus on content, but effective classroom management is what makes learning possible. In this slide, we will look at some of the most common mistakes teachers make in the classroom. We will go through each one step by step and explore the correct practices that can improve student participation, engagement, and learning outcomes. Let's start by understanding these key challenges. The first common mistake in classroom management is giving unclear instructions. Many teachers start an activity without clearly explaining what students should do. As a result, students feel confused. They keep asking, "What should we do?" or they stay silent because they don't understand the task. This confusion leads to wasting time, and the activity does not achieve its goal. Even worse, when students are not engaged, they start talking to each other about unrelated things. This quickly creates noise in the classroom and leads to a loss of control. To avoid this, teachers should always give clear, simple, and step-by-step instructions before starting any activity. They should also check that all students understand what to do. Clear instructions lead to better engagement, better behavior, and more effective learning. Another common mistake in classroom management is poor time management. Many teachers do not plan their lessons properly based on time. Each stage of the lesson is important to achieve the learning outcome. When a teacher spends too much time on one stage, like presentation, it affects the time for the next stages, such as practice and production. As a result, students may not get enough time to practice or produce the language, which reduces the effectiveness of the lesson. That's why teachers need to plan their lessons carefully. They should decide how much time each stage needs and choose activities that fit within that time. Good time management means not exceeding or reducing the time of any stage. When time is well managed, all stages are covered, and students achieve the learning outcome successfully. Another common mistake in classroom management is not ensuring equal participation. Many teachers ask only selected students to read or answer questions, while the rest of the class is not engaged. As a result, many students do not practice the skill, and their learning becomes limited. This also decreases student engagement and negatively affects classroom management. When students are not involved, they may lose focus and start talking, which leads to noise and loss of control. To avoid this, all students should participate at the same time in every activity. For example, all students can read together, answer together, or write their answers at the same time. Equal participation increases practice, improves skill mastery, and creates a more engaged and well-managed classroom. Differentiation is very important in every grammar lesson. Students in the same class have different levels. Some students are higher achievers, and others need more support. However, many teachers don't apply differentiation. They give the same task, the same questions, and the same level of difficulty to all students. This is not effective, because not all students learn in the same way, or at the same level. The correct practice is to adapt the lesson based on students' needs. This means using different levels of language, different types of questions, and different CCQs. Even when we check understanding, formative assessment should also be differentiated. We should not give one worksheet for all students. We should design tasks with different levels. For example, lower achievers can work on simple sentences with 2 choices and clear structure, while higher achievers can work on more challenging questions with more options and deeper thinking. As shown in this example, both groups are working on the same learning outcome, but with different levels of difficulty. This helps all students achieve the same goal in a way that matches their level. So, differentiation is not about changing the objective. It is about changing the level of support to help every student succeed. Another common mistake in teaching is increasing teacher talking time and minimizing student talking time. Many teachers do most of the talking, explaining, and answering, while students just listen. This reduces students' engagement and limits their opportunities to practice the language. As a result, students' comprehension decreases, and the learning outcome is not fully achieved. In an effective and successful classroom, the focus should be on students' talking time. Students should be actively involved, answering questions, discussing, and practicing the target language. When students talk more, they engage more, understand better, and achieve the learning outcome more successfully. Another common challenge is weak classroom management. Many teachers find it difficult to control the classroom effectively, especially in lower grades. This leads to low student engagement, weak comprehension, and difficulty in achieving the learning outcome. However, there are many strategies that can improve classroom management. One important strategy is minimizing teacher talking time and maximizing student talking time. Student-centered activities also play a key role, because when students are actively involved, they stay focused and engaged. In addition, using brain breaks, action games, and energizers helps students stay active, excited, and ready to learn. Motivation is also very important. When teachers reward and encourage students, it increases their engagement and positive behavior. When students are engaged, motivated, and actively participating, classroom management becomes much more effective. Another important point is using rewarding policies in the classroom. Many teachers are academically and professionally strong, and they can deliver student-centered lessons effectively. However, some teachers do not apply rewarding strategies. This reduces students' excitement and motivation to learn. Rewarding and motivating students is very important. When students feel appreciated, they become more eager to participate and practice. Simple rewards like praise, stars, certificates, or even clapping can make a big difference. When students are motivated, they stay engaged, enjoy the lesson, and become more willing to use the language. A positive classroom with continuous motivation helps students learn better and participate more confidently. Another common mistake in the classroom is not monitoring students and not checking their comprehension. Many teachers stay at the board while students are working, without moving around the classroom. As a result, the teacher cannot see if students understand the task or if they are making mistakes. Some students may be confused, but they continue working without support. Monitoring is very important during any activity. The teacher should move around, observe students' work, and support them when needed. At the same time, the teacher should ask CCQs to check understanding. These questions help the teacher make sure that students understand what they are doing and why. When teachers monitor and check comprehension regularly, students stay focused, receive immediate support, and achieve the learning outcome more effectively. Many teachers are academically and professionally strong, but they do not build a good rapport with their students. This affects the success of the lesson, even if the content and explanation are very good. When there is no strong connection between the teacher and the students, learners may feel less confident, less comfortable, and less motivated to participate. As a result, engagement decreases, and achieving the learning outcome becomes more difficult. Building rapport is very important in every classroom. Students learn better when they feel safe, respected, and supported. Teachers can build rapport in simple ways. Using students' names, smiling, encouraging them, and praising their effort all help create a positive relationship. Listening to students, showing patience, and giving them equal attention also strengthen this connection. When teachers build strong rapport, students become more engaged, more confident, and more willing to participate. This leads to a more successful and effective English class. Teaching is not only about delivering content, it is about inspiring minds and shaping the future. Every question you ask, every strategy you use, and every word you say can make a difference in a student's life. Be the teacher who motivates, who supports, and who believes in every learner. Create a classroom where students feel confident, engaged, and excited to learn. Remember, small changes in your teaching can lead to big impact in your students' success. Keep inspiring, keep growing, and keep making a difference every single day. Thank you.